You're not broke because life is unfair. You're broke because your habits make poverty feel normal. And the worst part? You probably don't even notice it. You call it being realistic. You call it taking it one day at a time. You call it surviving. But most people don't realize they're building a poor life while convincing themselves they're being responsible. And by the time they finally see it, they've already wasted years. Maybe even it's you right now. You wake up tired, you do what you're supposed to do, you work, you try to save a little. You tell yourself things will get better once you get the right opportunity, the right salary, the right connection, the right break. But somehow, nothing really changes. Same stress, same bills, same waiting, same feeling that life is moving, but you're not. And that's what makes this dangerous. Because poverty doesn't always look like disaster. Sometimes it looks like routine. Sometimes it looks like being busy all day and still having nothing to show for it. Sometimes it looks like being good enough to survive, but never strategic enough to escape. Sometimes it looks like doing exactly what everyone told you to do and quietly realizing it's not working. Listen, the hardest trap to escape is the one that feels normal. That's why so many people stay stuck for so long. They think poverty is just about low income. It's not. Low income can be temporary. A poor mindset, a poor environment, poor standards, poor decision-making patterns, that can trap you for decades. And no, this is not one of those fake, just think positively and become rich speeches, because that's nonsense. You can think positively and still stay broke. You can work hard and still stay broke. You can be talented and still stay broke. So what actually keeps people poor? Here's what nobody tells you. Most people are not losing because they're lazy. They're losing because they've been trained to value comfort over control. That's the real problem. You were taught how to obey, not how to think. How to follow the path, not how to question the path. How to get approval, not how to build leverage. School told you to memorize, jobs tell you to comply, society tells you to consume, social media tells you to compare, and then everyone acts shocked when you end up confused, dependent, and financially fragile. Think about it. You can spend 15 years in school and still never learn how money actually works, never learn how debt changes behavior, never learn how ownership beats effort, never learn that your environment shapes your ambition, never learn that income alone does not create freedom. You learn formulas, you learn dates, you learn how to pass tests, but no one sits you down and says, if your entire life depends on trading your time for money, you are one problem away from panic. That's not negativity, that's math. Now pay attention. Hard work is not the flex people think it is. Hard work without direction is just expensive exhaustion. A lot of people are proud of being tired, proud of being overworked, proud of handling pressure. But being constantly drained does not mean you're progressing. It might just mean you're trapped. This is where people get it wrong. They think effort automatically creates results. It doesn't. Effort applied to the wrong system just makes you better at suffering. If you work 10 hours a day, spend everything you make, stay around people who think small, avoid learning valuable skills, and keep making emotional decisions with money, then no amount of grind is going to save you. You're not building wealth, you're rehearsing struggle. And it gets worse, because after enough years of this, people start protecting the very patterns that are ruining them. They defend bad habits because those habits feel familiar. They defend broke environments because those environments make underachievement feel acceptable. They laugh at discipline because discipline threatens their excuses. You've seen it. The person who says investing is a scam because they've never studied it. The person who says all rich people are evil because that lets them stay passive. The person who says money isn't everything every time they're confronted with the fact that financial stress is slowly controlling their life. Let me explain something clearly. Money is not everything, but lack of money affects almost everything. It affects where you live, how you eat, how you sleep, who you depend on, what risks you can take, how long you stay in bad situations, how much disrespect you tolerate, how much time you have to think, how much peace you have in your own mind. So when people act like money doesn't matter, a lot of the time they're not being wise, they're coping. And coping sounds noble when failure becomes familiar. Now you might be thinking, so what, are you saying everything is my fault? No, that would be lazy thinking too. Not everyone starts from the same place. Some people have real disadvantages: bad timing, bad luck, bad family patterns, bad schools, bad examples, real setbacks. That's true. But here's the part nobody wants to hear. What happened to you may not be your fault. What you keep repeating usually is. That's the line. That's where responsibility begins. Because once you're old enough to notice your patterns, staying blind becomes a choice. And most people choose blindness. Why? Because awareness is expensive. The second you see the truth, you lose the right to keep lying to yourself. You can't say, "I didn't know" anymore. You can't blame the system for everything while copying the behaviors that keep you weak inside that system. You can't talk about wanting more while living like your future doesn't matter. Listen, poor people don't just have money problems. They often have time problems, attention problems, impulse problems, ego problems. They spend to feel powerful. They procrastinate to avoid fear. They chase entertainment because silence forces self-confrontation. They say yes to things that drain them. They stay loyal to versions of themselves that should have been left behind years ago. This is why some people make more money and still stay broke. Because income can rise while identity stays poor. A broke identity is dangerous. A broke identity says, "I deserve this little reward every time discipline is needed." A broke identity says, "I'll start when I feel ready." A broke identity says, "At least I'm trying," while refusing to measure results. A broke identity avoids numbers, avoids planning, avoids discomfort, avoids high-value rooms, avoids learning things that expose how unprepared it really is. Here's the thing. You do not rise to the level of your wishes. You fall to the level of your standards. And a lot of people have standards so low they don't even realize they're insulting their own potential. They tolerate constant distraction. They tolerate bad spending. They tolerate fake urgency. They tolerate weak friendships. They tolerate low-skill work forever. They tolerate chaos in their routine. They tolerate always being about to start. Then they wonder why life never changes. So why are you still stuck? Maybe because you keep trying to solve a structural problem with motivation. Motivation is temporary. Clarity is better. Systems are better. Standards are better. Environment is better. If every day you wake up in a setup designed to make you distracted, reactive, emotional, and dependent, then your future will keep looking like your past. Not because you're cursed, because your design is broken. And this is where it changes. If you want a different life, stop asking, "How can I make more money fast?" That question usually leads desperate people into stupid decisions. Ask better questions. What skill can I build that people will pay for consistently? What habit is quietly draining my future? Who around me benefits from me staying small? What am I pretending not to know? What am I spending money on just to manage emotions? What would my life look like if I became harder to distract? That last one matters, because distraction is one of the biggest poverty tools in modern life, not just entertainment, fragmentation. A distracted person cannot build, cannot focus, cannot go deep, cannot spot opportunities early, cannot endure boredom long enough to become valuable. And valuable people get paid, not noisy people, not fake busy people, not people who post about hustle all day. Valuable people. People who solve problems. People who communicate clearly. People who understand leverage. People who can delay gratification long enough to create something useful. That's why the solution isn't sexy. It's not manifest harder. It's not buy this mindset course and your life changes tomorrow. It's not quit your job today and become a millionaire in 6 months. That fantasy content has destroyed people. Here's the real solution. First, tell the truth about your current life. Not the edited version, not the hopeful version, the real version. How much do you earn? How much do you spend? What do you waste time on? What habits are making you weak? What skills do you actually have that the market values? Who are you becoming if you keep living exactly like this for the next 3 years? Write that down. Because vague people stay stuck. Second, stop using money emotionally. This is huge. A lot of poor decisions are not financial, they're emotional. Buying to impress, buying to escape stress, buying because you had a bad day, buying because you want to feel like you're progressing when you're not. That is self-sabotage wearing nice clothes. Every dollar, every hour, and every bit of energy should have a job. Third, build one high-income skill, not 10, 1. Something real, something useful, something that solves a real problem. Sales, editing, writing, coding, design, marketing, closing, operations, whatever fits your strengths and the market. Then get good enough that people cannot ignore the value, not by talking, by proof. Fourth, audit your environment brutally. Some of you are trying to build a strong future inside weak surroundings. That almost never works. If everyone around you mocks discipline, normalizes mediocrity, hates ambition, spends recklessly, and treats growth like arrogance, you are in a psychological tax zone. You are being charged mentally every day just to stay focused. You may not need to hate those people, but you do need distance. Fifth, learn to be bored again. Yes, bored. Because if you cannot sit still long enough to think, study, plan, and build without constantly grabbing your phone, checking notifications, or needing stimulation, you will stay easy to control. And controlled people rarely become free. Now pay attention. Freedom is not just having money. Freedom is having options. The option to leave, the option to wait, the option to say no, the option to think long-term, the option to protect your peace, the option to choose your work instead of begging for survival. That kind of freedom does not come from hoping. It comes from discipline stacked over time, quietly, repeatedly, without applause. And yes, it will feel unfair, because while other people are relaxing, you may need to learn. While other people are spending, you may need to invest. While other people are performing success online, you may need to build in silence. That's the price. There is no version of transformation that feels comfortable the whole way through. Now, you might be thinking, but what if I'm already behind? You are. Most people are. That's reality. But being behind is not fatal. Staying delusional is. You do not need to fix your entire life this week. You need to stop feeding the version of you that keeps making weak choices. That's the shift. Not a new quote, not a new fantasy, a new standard. A standard that says, I track my money, I protect my attention, I build useful skills. I stop performing struggle and start correcting it. I stop blaming what I can change. I stop calling chaos personality. I stop waiting for perfect conditions. Because let's be honest, a lot of people say they want success. What they really want is visible success without invisible sacrifice. They want the result without the restructuring, the money without the patience, the confidence without the competence, the lifestyle without the discipline. That person stays poor, not always in a bank account, but in thinking, in choices, in identity. And once poverty settles into identity, it starts speaking for you. It makes you hesitate when opportunity shows up. It makes you shrink in rooms that could change your life. It makes you reject responsibility because responsibility feels heavy.
It makes you protect your excuses like they're a part of your personality. Listen carefully. You do not need to become a different human overnight, but you do need to stop romanticizing the habits that are destroying your future. That late start, that lazy spending, that constant scrolling, that fake "I work better under pressure," that addiction to comfort, that fear of being seen trying, that loyalty to people who clap for your jokes but disappear when it's time to build. That is not harmless. That is how people lose years. So here's the harsh truth. You will stay poor as long as your life is built around short-term relief instead of long-term control. That's it. Not because the world is simple, not because success is guaranteed, not because hard work always pays off instantly, but because no one escapes financial struggle while worshiping convenience, avoiding responsibility, and refusing to become valuable. That is the truth. And now you know it. So the question is not whether life has been unfair. It probably has. The question is this: how much longer are you going to participate in your own stagnation? Because now you can't say you didn't see it. Now you know what's keeping you stuck. Now you know the pattern. Now you know the cost. So decide. Keep choosing comfort and call it bad luck, or get honest, get sharper, and build a life that no longer depends on excuses. Your future is already being shaped by what you repeat. The question is, are you finally ready to stop repeating the things that are keeping you poor?